Welcome back to our city. For the second half of this evening's show, I'm pleased to be joined by Battalion Chief Sal Baracco of the Elizabeth Fire Department. Chief, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mayor.
So first of all, Sal, tell us a little bit about yourself. How you're an Elizabeth kid, right?
Yes, sir. Born and raised in Elizabeth. I attended St. Genevieve's Grammar School, Roseville Catholic High School, and Seton Hall University. I've been a member of the Elizabeth Fire Department. I am in my 25th year now. My father served the city for 36 years. My brother is also currently active, approaching his 25th year. And rumor has it my nephew has expressed interest in becoming part of the Fire Department of Elizabeth.
Oh, so it's a good family tradition you got
Yes,
going
sir.
there.
Absolutely.
25 years, so you rose through the ranks up to Battalion Chief at
Yes.
the current stage.
Yes, Mayor.
Good. Good for you. So, Sal, one of the things we're going to talk about today is the status of, first, the Catherine Street Firehouse. Are you involved in this? I mean, I go by it. I see it's getting built, so
Yes, sir.
tell us from the fire department's perspective what the status is.
The firehouse is running on schedule. We're starting to see some swifter progress as we speak, and it's still on schedule to be complete June of this year.
So who's going there?
Engine 6 is scheduled to be housed there, along with some other specialized equipment. And the firehouse is not only going to provide us more room to facilitate some of our needs and our storage needs as well, it's also being built with energy efficiency in mind, which over time will save tax dollars.
So that firehouse, for the viewers, there was a firehouse there.
Correct. Yes, there was.
It burned down there, and
yes.
So that's gone. It was just getting old. The current Engine 6, where are they working out of?
They're currently riding out of fire headquarters on Irvington Avenue. So, you know, it's, but there's still full fire protection in the, you know, throughout everyone's district throughout the city.
Gives us quicker coverage in the north end part of town?
Yeah, it's a better balance. Yes, sir.
Right. So, the new apparatus you were just talking about, what kind of new apparatus you're going to have in Engine 6 and how will it enhance the fire department?
Actually, over the last 2 years, we've added 2 new pumpers, 1 new aerial ladder, and 1 new specialized foam unit to the fleet, in addition to a couple new command vehicles. We're taking delivery in the very near future of a retractored, refurbished aerial tiller ladder, which is traditionally called the hook and ladder. It just happens to be right up my alley. That's my managemental job, is the apparatus. In addition to that, by year's end, we are speccing out 2 new pumpers, an additional pumper with a water tower, and a new elevated 95-foot tower ladder. Some of the advantages to the new apparatus are simple. I mean, obviously less upkeep and maintenance, and they're also a lot safer, restraint systems and airbags and things of that nature. One of the things that you may not realize, or some people may not realize, when you look at them, they might look a little different. But realistically, what I've tried to accomplish is standardizing what's underneath what you see there, so that the future service and upkeep of the vehicles is standardized, because we don't have to stock too many filters or switches or things of that nature. So it makes it a little bit easier for the repair future of the vehicles. Probably the biggest impact these vehicles are having on the city and our future is that they are coming across with what's required as 0 emissions on the diesel engines. You could basically sit near, I don't advise it, but you could really sit near the tailpipe of one of these vehicles and eat your lunch and not be exposed to any
I'm glad you said you don't advise it.
Yes, but it's, you know, but again, everything is being put into motion for a reason, you know, and it just, you know, our fleet does get used a lot. And
Hey, what's the lifespan of one of these?
It's interesting you should ask, because we just went through an inventory per se, and you know, over-the-road vehicles, you know, big diesel trucks, you might see, you know, it's not unheard of to see 500,000 to 1 million miles, let's say, on the vehicle. But we can't equate a fire apparatus to road mileage, because they're hours. So you have to take those engine hours and multiply it by an average factor of 33. And most of our fleet has 500,000 plus miles equivalent on them. So they get used substantially. They're out the door many, many times a day.
So the equivalent is 500,000 road miles.
Right. If you took the hours that are on the hour
hours that the
meter,
machine
multiply that by
works.
33, and that's your equivalency of mileage.
So we've hired some new firefighters. Are you
Yes, sir.
over the last two years? Have you
Yes.
been involved in the training, and how's that going?
Sure.
How many?
The last group of 10 that completed their training are just finishing their probationary term now. They'll be done within the next month or so. excuse me, next month or so. We have 10 additional firefighters that are in the academy as we speak, and they're scheduled to graduate, if I'm not mistaken, June 3rd. And there's also one individual from the Rollway Fire Department that's cross-training with them. It's because they only had one member that they needed to train. So it's interesting to bring all the different parameters together and to see kind of give back a little bit of what I had the good fortune of receiving through my time.
Any new training going on since?
Yes, there's been some new undertakings. We're starting to put into motion our new accountability system. As always, we're keeping up with all our mandated training. But one of the more interesting things that has come across as of late is we've been doing some cross-training with the Elizabeth Police Department and our EMS units on active shooter training. It's an unfortunate part of what's going on in society today, but it's so necessary to make the first responders aware of what they potentially could be walking into. So it just makes our people a lot safer so we can provide the care that's necessary for the citizens.
Chief, when you were trained, it was done in a matter of weeks, right? Now it's a
Correct.
matter of
Yeah.
4 months, 5 months? Tell us about
close
that
to 6
difference.
months,
Close
yeah.
to six. Tell us about that difference.
It's
You were expected
tremendous.
to learn things in a cup of coffee.
Well, there's a lot to be said about true on-the-job training. It's still priceless. However, these gentlemen that are now coming on, they get the good fortune of being exposed to some very formal training requirements. And that's great tools to put under their belt, but the best training ground is always the true ground that you're on. And the best advice I give any of them is just to look around to the man sitting next to them or they're training with and realize for the next 25 years you're going to spend 25% of your life with this individual and they're going to be part of your family now. So it's important that we all work together and continue to grow together and continue to do what I can speak for myself, what I love to do.
So one of the things that I think the public always questions is when there's a multi-alarm.
Yes, sir.
5-alarm, 4-alarm, 3. Who decides that and how does that happen?
Okay. On receipt of an initial alarm, you're receiving your basic core to address, let's say, one structure. But because of some of the areas of the city are still older areas and the buildings are closer together, if you have a very well-involved fire in one structure, it's threatening the exposed structures. So, for example, last month on Marshall Street, we had a 4-alarm fire. We had one building that was heavily involved in fire. The 2 buildings on either side were the exposed buildings. So the main fire building warrant that first alarm. Each exposure warrants an additional alarm assignment, and due to inclement weather and extremely cold conditions, that's what warranted the 4th alarm. So a lot of factors. Life safety is always our priority, and then instant stabilization is something that is on our forefront, and then obviously property conservation.
So when that happens and we have to pull out more fire trucks or more apparatus to come, do other cities assist us,
Yes,
or do
sir.
they cover? How does that work?
It's what we call the mutual aid system. Predominantly, it's most active for ourselves within our county. We do work outside the county a bit, but mostly within the county. So when we deplete our resources because of a multiple alarm fire, we call on the mutual aid system. And what the mutual aid system does when it's activated is it not only brings other municipalities, neighboring municipalities in to help cover our unmanned houses to continue to provide protection for the city, but it also, should we need additional assistance at the fire scene that's active, they will also be dispatched to that point.
And so therefore they'll cover the firehouse. Do they?
Yes,
But
sir.
they don't know the city as well, right?
No, they don't. What they establish is what's called a task force, and they get a chief officer representation from the city who will ride with that task force, and then they work with the mutual aid coordinators as well, who most of which are extremely familiar with our city. Some are even retired from our city.
So if a fire breaks out in some other part of the city, these folks could respond rather
Yes,
quickly.
sir. Yes, sir.
Firefighters know how many hose lines, fire trucks are needed to control a fire when you roll up on it, basically, or how long does it take you to assess?
Yeah, well, the best way I could really explain it is if we just have, let's say, one bedroom involved in fire, let's say, that right away is dictating 3 hose lines. The first hose line is obviously to the seat of the fire. The second hose line is to back up that first hose line. And the third hose line is to go on the floor above to cut off any potential fire extension. So just one room of fire warrants 3 hose lines. Now, if we get into a heavily involved fire, we also now have to place hose lines to protect those exposures, as we discussed earlier. So it does start to multiply rather quickly. But we outfit all our equipment in such a manner that's quickly and easily deployed, and we could also adapt and overcome.
So in addition to fighting fires, we also deal with other issues in the fire department.
We do, Mayor,
Emergency medical and other things.
Yes.
Tell us about some of those other issues that the fire department deals with.
Absolutely. Well, as you had just mentioned, we also contribute with the medical system. A lot of what the fire service also offers to the city of Elizabeth is auto extrication, motor vehicle accidents. We help mitigate with hazmat incidents, technical rescue, confined space, and even something as simple as a motor vehicle lockout. You know, we're there to assist the citizens in their time of need, and we're happy to do so.
I guess helping people on an automotive lockout, you either get really nice people thanking you're there, or folks that are just angry at themselves for being.
Yeah, you know, you get some interesting encounters with the motor vehicle lockouts. Yes, you do.
So one of the other terms that's often used is under control and
Yes.
out.
Yes.
I would take out meaning the fire's completely out, but under control, does that mean it's not going to spread? What does that mean, under control?
The best way for me to explain that would be when we get called for a report of a fire, that fire already has the upper hand. It's already begun. So that fire is in control initially. We want to get there, and then once we get the upper hand, now we have that fire under control. But we're still there for a substantial amount of time, hitting hot spots and preserving property and doing our best to return that property to that homeowner or building representative. And then that's at which point we could call that as out.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So under control is when you don't anticipate the fire spreading anymore.
Correct, yes.
And out means you're in a position to return it.
Yes, sir.
So, Chief, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us on
Absolutely.
the show and talk about the Elizabeth Fire Department and some of the efforts they're doing.
My
and
pleasure.
I appreciate your commitment to our citizens. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
So for Battalion Chief Sal Baracco, I gave him a promotion, he doesn't know it. For Battalion Chief Sal Baracco and for Miss Eileen Kelly and Miss Karen Schott, I'm Chris Ballwage, and we'll see you next week on another edition of Our City.
Offering everything you could want from college, including a life. Kane University.